Welcome to the Entrepreneurial CEO Podcast, where we dive into the real stories behind building and scaling a business. Each episode, we sit down with CEOs, founders, and leaders to uncover hard-won lessons in leadership, systems, and team building. Listen in each week to learn directly from real business leaders who have been in your shoes, had success, made the mistakes, and all of the messiness that comes with building a business. If you're ready to learn from real-world leaders and gain insights you can apply today, you're in the right place. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Dr. Cohen, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody, today we're joined by Dr. Cohen. He is the Executive Director of LISC Jacksonville. LISC is a national nonprofit and CDFI that works in 39 cities. They bring capital and resources to under-resourced communities. In Jacksonville, Dr. Cohen leads a small, mighty team. They're focused on advancing affordable housing, economic opportunity, and community development, leveraging both federal and local funding to drive meaningful impact. So thank you so much for being here, man. Excited to learn more about your organization and mission.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate for you using your platform and inviting me on.
Yeah. Before we jump in all the questions, maybe just any additional background about yourself or the organization.
You know what? LISC is probably, again, as you said, located in 39 cities and 9 rural communities throughout our country. So for many of your listening audiences, I would venture to say the LISC is probably in their city. We are probably one of the most, um, I would say the brightest and advanced corporations out there, nonprofits out there that many people just simply don't know is living in their city. And so again, thank you, Andrew, for having me to be a part, talk about the work that we're doing nationally and more specifically what we're doing here in Jacksonville.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you on. Can you tell us more about your mission? Tell us more about LISC Jacksonville or just LISC in general about the
Yeah,
mission.
sure. I always describe lists as in a way that I would describe it to my mother, and my father, and we are a financial and social intermediary. Financial in the sense that we bring capital to under-resourced communities throughout our country, specifically, more specifically here in Jacksonville, and social in as much that we try to prepare those very same communities to receive said capital. I live by a mantra that all money isn't good money, and some money, whether it's intended to be good, can be quite destructive. And so we
Mm.
try to make sure those very same organizations that we work with are in a position to receive said money. So that's why I say not only do we are a financial intermediary, but we also social in the sense that we bring programmatic offerings to those very same communities. And I'll just list off one of our programmatic things that now is starting to take sort of hold all across the country. Our work relative to heirs property. So heirs property is one of those programmatic things that we bring to communities, but we also bring the capital to support said program.
And you've been in the nonprofit space before LISC, right?
Yeah, man. This is LISC. I'm actually coming up on my 5th year here at LISC Jacksonville, but I've been in the nonprofit space now going on a little over 20 years.
Wow.
Ironically enough, I started my professional career out in the world of sports and entertainment, believe it or not.
Mm.
The universe has a funny way of allowing you to do those things that you want to do. And I was a former college athlete. I played football at Morehouse College and got hurt. Wanted to, I never was deluded by the dream of going to the NFL. I just knew that wasn't going to be in the cards for me. But I always thought that I could make a career in the world of sports, and the universe allowed me to do that. But ultimately, it had other plans for me, and I found I always say I found my moment, that thing that I was gifted to do, and that was
Hmm.
in the space of moving humanity forward. And so I've been in this space now for well over 20 years, and every day I feel like I'm living out my. I always call it my Whitney Houston moment. Some people have the gift to be able to sing, and
Mm.
she had a gift of singing, and this was my gift that the universe gave to me. And I always say that I wake up every morning to move humanity forward. And I get the opportunity to do that now with the great organization, and I've been here now for about 5 years.
That's pretty amazing, man.
Oh
That's
man, thank you,
that's
man.
that's pretty amazing. To wake up with that aligned purpose and really enjoying what you do every single day.
You know what?
Uh,
The funny part I'll tell you is that we're gonna be, I don't know about you, but I'm not independently wealthy. And so I'm gonna have to go to somebody's job every day. And
mm,
you might as well thoroughly, and I mean thoroughly, thoroughly enjoy where you go. And
yeah,
this industry has allowed me to thoroughly enjoy going to work every single day. So there's not a day that, I just bring my physical there. I show up and bring my whole self every single day. And I'm very appreciative of that type of opportunity to be able to do that, with this organization.
that's amazing. So a large part, a percentage of LISC Jacksonville's funds come from local partners and philanthropy. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's
Is that a
absolutely
big
correct.
part of your role? Is it fundraising and you know,
You know what? I think, in any organization, particularly those that are a nonprofit, a big part of the leadership's role is fundraising. But I would like to think that, that's just comes with walking in the office every single day. You have to be able to tell your organization's mission and vision and communicate it in such a way that it makes people want to support you. But more than that, for me, as I see my role in the process is, what's the vision of the organization? What programmatically can we do to make the lives of the people that we allegedly say we serve better? And so that's another portion of my job. So again, I would probably say 50-50,
mm,
raising funds. But I tell everybody, whether you're the secretary or you're the a program officer, it's everybody's job to raise money for this organization. So, I do it, my assistant does it. The
yeah,
person who's the development director, obviously she does it, but I have 3 or 4 program officers, and their job is to raise funds for the organization. So I don't do it alone.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, when the buck stops, it stops with me. If we meet that KPI or don't meet that KPI, it rests with me. But yes, that is 50% of the job for me. And then the other 50% is from a programmatic standpoint, what are we delivering to under-resourced communities that they find of value? Sort of this idea of interest convergence
yeah.
that we have. And so I try to drive that home in a way that makes my job of raising dollars not easy, but less strenuous than it would be if there was no interest alignment.
Okay. And what kind of goals or what do you guys have for goals for the next 1 to 3 years for LISC Jacksonville?
You know
What are you
what?
guys trying to accomplish?
Well, for us, it centers around advancing this work of heirs property. We want to, as a local organization, we want to be seen as the thought leaders in the space of advancing the work of heirs property down the field. That's number one. Number two, we want to make sure that we make smart decisions in terms of capital in some of our most challenged communities. So for me, every year I want to do an assessment to say what was our economic impact in the communities that we are investing in. So far, so
Mm,
good. Last year we were at 25 million. The year before that we were at about 20. Year before that we were at about 18 million. So we've steadily seen that number increase year over year. And so that, I would probably say those two things are questions that I ask myself at the end of every year. What was our economic impact, and how do we continue to make ourselves the thought leaders as an office around this work associated with heirs property?
okay. What could you see getting in the way of those
Um,
objectives or goals?
well, the changing tide politically always seems to
Mm,
find a way to get in the way, good, bad, or otherwise. I always say, I reserve my judgment on how well I think a person in a political role is doing for the house. But the politics of that can always get in the way. What we may be focusing on may be directly in contradiction to what somebody politically thinks we should be doing. So that's one thing that could get in the way. And then, two, the changing tide of communities. The communities that we work in are always under some form of duress, whether that
Mm.
duress internal duress or that duress is external. It can always be a thing. And so we're always navigating those issues as it relates to the people we serve, and then the larger political atmosphere, has a great impact on our work.
What's an example of the internal duress and external duress?
Let's just say the um, gentrification is always a challenge. Um,
Mm.
you know, I I mean, it's just always a thing. I mean, if you know the Jacksonville Jaguars decide to build a stadium of the future in your neighborhood, that's an external issue that causes duress on the neighborhood, because now it immediately becomes a destination where people want to be. Um, an internal stressor is always, um, how people see their own communities. Um, i- you know, Again, um, the lack of a grocery store, the lack of a pharmacy, the lack of a financial institution, the lack of, and I'm putting this in air quotes, um, high rated schools, um, you know, um, those are all internal things, external things that make people internally look at themselves and say, man, they don't find no value in it. And
Mm.
so, we're always navigating that fine line, that people are, um, that they have with how they see themselves and how they view the communities that they live in.
Okay. Switching gears real quick. So there's a couple known issues or broad issues for the nonprofit sector. There's some data that shows that like burnout seems to be a large problem in nonprofits, where like 75% of leaders say it impacts their ability to deliver their mission. Maybe it doesn't apply to you. You love your job. It sounds like you're super satisfied. But for many others, burnout happens. Do you agree with that? Do you see that? And how do you
Well,
keep
I
your
mean,
team focused and away from it?
I would tell you that, particularly in the sector that we work in, you see people sometimes at their absolute worst. And the thing that
Mm.
I don't think many people think about is you can't unsee what you saw, you can't unknow what you know, you can't unhear what you heard, and you can't unexperience what you've just experienced. And so having all of those things, um, keeping all those things in mind, man, this work is heavy and it's hard, and
Yeah.
you're always under duress from someone externally who might suggest that if they would only do X, and
Mm.
not really giving any credence to the wicked problems. And by wicked problems, I mean those problems that are so interconnected, um, that they're almost impossible to solve. Like, and so as a nonprofit professional, you don't get to unsee that. You don't get to unknow that. You don't get to unknow that the moment a grocery store closes in a neighborhood, it immediately limits access to healthy food options. Those healthy food options, then a lack of a grocery store sort of um, allows a pharmacy to close. Now, not only do you not have access to healthy food options, but your food options that you do have will immediately make you ill. And then when you're ill, you don't have access to a pharmacy.
Mm.
And so all of these things are so interconnected, but you got people externally saying, if she would just only eat better, well, people eat what they have access to,
Right.
you
Right.
know, or they make decisions based upon the information that they have initially.
That's right.
And
Yep.
so it does lead to burnout because you don't get to go home and not act like you didn't see that kid or that grandparent struggling to do the
Right.
right thing when doing the right thing is moving further and further away from them.
Mm.
So burnout does happen. And, I just have found other mechanisms that allow me to know that, and believe in my heart of hearts that, you know what, if I didn't get the problem right today, I'm going to show back up with all of myself tomorrow. And you can bet your bottom line, I'm going to get it right. I'm going to find some
Mm.
way to get it right. And I just believe that and which allows me to show up every day. And so, you know, I'm not saying I don't get burnout because I do, but I've
Mm.
found alternative mechanisms to cope with said burnout.
Hi, if you're a CEO out there who's struggling with focus for your company, aligning your team, accountability, if you're struggling with execution, connecting the dots from where you're at to where you want to be, we've got a great program for you here at MAP. My name is Michael Cato. I'm the CEO. Most importantly, I was a client for 15 years, sold my company to a public company, and then bought MAP so that we can help other entrepreneurs with this specific problem. We're a 60-year-old company. We've worked with 170,000 individual executives and CEOs. We've worked with 15,000 organizations. This is what we do. Click the link below to learn a little bit more about how people just like you, CEOs, have transformed their business and ultimately transformed their life by running through the MAP system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important. That's important. And look, I think it comes from, it would seem to me as an outsider looking in, it comes from a place of caring, right? People that are working in these nonprofits and for these missions care deeply. And so when they run into these walls, I'm sure that's super frustrating.
Oh,
You know?
absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what? I look at it purely from I am my brother's keeper. And, I don't get bogged down in the hue of my brother's skin. I am my brother's keeper. And I don't show up with a Superman complex, you
Mm.
know, like ain't nobody, sit out a clarion call. Hey, we need Dr. Cohen to come over here and save us. Most people want to be able or in a position to make decisions for themselves. They may just
Yeah.
not have the resources to do it. And so once I
Mm.
relieve myself of trying to be everybody's savior and I'm just there to help Andrew. And
Yeah.
again, finding that level of interest convergence where Andrew's interest and my capacity to help meet, then it's all good. It relieves me of all of that pressure. Um,
Mm.
but again, I am my brother's keeper. I'm just there to help, and I'm not there to save you. You're gonna have to want to do that on your own.
Okay. Another thing, so with our organization with MAP, it's a lot of it is about leadership and management and becoming, systems, process, delegation. A lot of the research shows that many nonprofits struggle with some succession planning, developing their leaders, investing into it because, lack of funding. How do you have you seen that in your long career inside nonprofits? And how do you think about preparing your team or the next gen of leaders within LISC Jacksonville?
Well, the funny part is our newsletter for this quarter. I've talked about leadership and my belief system around leadership. You will learn it. If you talk to me enough, I'm a music connoisseur. I just love music, so I use a lot of analogies around music. And that being the case, um, I'm not interested in leading every single song my organization sings. I just don't. Because then it
Hmm.
becomes, you know, Irvin and the Six Tops.
Hmm.
I don't want to do that. I want to be able to pass the mic to somebody else within the organization and allow them to lead a number one single. And they get some shine. And I'm just in the back, doing the two step, So that's how I approach leadership within my organization. So for instance, we're receiving an award as an organization in Detroit tonight. Um, I'm not there, but the people who brought the idea within my office, who brought the idea to me. And I said, yes, I believe in this. Let's move it forward. They're there receiving the award.
Amazing.
Again, it does me no good if I got to lead every song. It leads to that issue of burnout. So I believe in, developing my team around their expertise and what they're passionate about. And so they are able to, speak for me um, when I don't necessarily have to be there. I'm just one guy. And so by doing that, I think that's been the most efficient way to lead. I hire really, really smart people who are good at a thing or several things. And then I just get out of their way. And when it comes to doing things like this, when it comes to doing other things, I'm Johnny on the spot because I have enough in the tank to lead. I think, I'm confident enough in my abilities, but I'm also confident enough in my team's ability to do what they need to do and represent the organization. And if not,
Yeah.
then I get me somebody who can. But
Yeah.
that's sort of how I've approached leadership that allows me, again, to show up every single day fresh and thinking through how I might be better today than I was yesterday, and I might be better tomorrow than I am today.
I think that's super important. I mean, you're basically, it's delegation at its finest, right? It's super common thing with entrepreneurs or leaders of organizations is when they try to be involved in every decision or do everything themselves. And that doesn't scale. That doesn't, you can't be, you become the bottleneck, right?
Right.
Or but if you're not going to, if you
become terribly insecure,
Yes. And sometimes it is, sometimes it is partly insecurity. They don't want to let go. They feel like they need to be involved in everything. But if you're going to allow your people to take ownership and do those things, it means you have to have amazing people, right? That you could trust. It also means that you need to have systems in place so that, okay, I'm going to trust you to go do this, but I need to have a mechanism in place to ensure that it's done correctly and things don't go off the rails, right? So how do you do that with your team?
Well, I mean, inspect what you expect.
That's right. Yeah.
So it ain't you ain't out there just wildcatting and doing your own solo thing. For my team, we meet once a week, and the reason for that is I want to hear in the platform of our entire staff what it is that you're working on and how somebody else might be inside of our office might be able to benefit from what it is that you're doing. So we have, open discussions around what it is that you're working on, what it is that you're working on, what it is that you're working on, and how that impacts our overarching goal. And then, I meet with each person individually every other week so that we could talk specifically about what it is that you're working on that I may have some questions around. So it's a process for me. It's not just, hey, Andrew, go do your thing.
Yeah.
To believe in you as a professional. If I can't do that, man, then this just not going to work. It really is.
And has that happened before with certain team members?
Not in this role. It's happened in other organizations. I've had the pleasure wherever I go at, I tend to stay a little while, anywhere from 5 years or greater. And so, in one organization, it did happen. There was just no vision alignment, and we had to agree to part ways, and that was okay. What I'm trying to do again is advance humanity forward in a way where there is interest conversions, and the people who we say we are helping get to tell their authentic story. And it just wasn't there, and it's okay. I agreed to move on, and they're doing great, and I'm doing great. So that's kind of just for me from a leadership standpoint, a philosophical belief in how we get from point A to point B.
Okay. We talk often on this podcast and in general about internal, right? Systems, process, how people run their businesses or organizations, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit. When you look at LISC Jacksonville today, what kind of challenges or what are the big challenges you're trying to solve for internally in terms of how you guys operate?
Well, you know what, man, I will tell you, affordable housing is a huge challenge. And how do we get capital into some of our most challenged communities in a way that's authentic to the people who live there? Like, how do we raise their voice up? Because again, I just believe in my heart of hearts, people will do the right thing. People will do the right thing. We just have some systems in place that, quite frankly, you know, capitalism sometimes don't see the people. And so, I work really, really hard on that piece. One, addressing the issue of affordable housing, and then how do we get capital into these places and spaces that is mindful of this is a business. We are not a charity here. We operate as a nonprofit, but I think, my approach to this has always been from a business lens. And maybe that's the lens that I came from to this work, 20 plus years ago, which has helped me, navigate it, is because I'm talking about what's the ROI on the work that we're doing. What is the economic impact of the work that we're doing? Sure, people care about children. Sure, people care about all these other things, but I am a businessman I'm in the business of moving humanity forward. But there has to be a return on your investment. And that's the language that I speak, not only to my staff, but that's the language that I speak to those who choose to support us from a funding mechanism. If you don't do X, this is the money you're going to lose. If you do Y, this is the money that is going to save you. Now, you may not want to do the work, but I'm in the business of doing it for you. And so that's the language that I speak. And I'm unapologetic about it. It resonates with people from the business community because they are in the, business of making money, not losing it. And I tell people I can never, ever compete with that dog that you see on your TV at 12 o'clock at night when they're saying, if you just give 30 cents a day, you too can save, this dog. I mean, I've given to that commercial more times than I could shake a stick at, or the St. Jude commercial. They tug at me in such a way that they make you give. I can't compete with that. But what I can compete with is saying to you, Andrew, if you get on a plane in Jacksonville, you're not getting off in a gated community. You're getting off in Jacksonville, Florida. And what happens to the least of thee impacts the greatest of thee. And so how can I help you help them so that your business can flourish in Jacksonville, Florida? And that's a business case.
I think that's a very logical way to approach it. I think that, I could see that resonating very well, especially the ROI conversation, right?
It's a simple equation. Argument. It's a sustainable argument because, again, when you see that St. Jude commercial and that little kid, man, you're like, geez, let me just I was going to spend $20 on lottery tickets. Let me get this $20.
Well, Dr. Cohen, looking at the organization today, if you could wave a magic wand and optimize one part of your internal operations, whether it's your team or your systems or staffing, anything, what would that be and why?
I would optimize the work that we're doing. And again, going back to that businessman in me, I think from a team standpoint, we are solid as a team, and I think I manage that really good. But again, I think the challenge for us is optimizing the work that we do relative to the place that we're doing it. And what I mean by that is ultimately, I have to find a way to continue to make some of our most under-resourced and challenged communities destinations where people want to live. And so if I could wave that magic wand, it would be to optimize that work. Because while,
Yeah.
it's great to live in the suburbs where they have nice sidewalks and 15 grocery stores and a pharmacy on every corner. Some of our partners live in places where, the sidewalks aren't so nice, and, you know, there are no grocery stores, or there are no banks, or there are no pharmacies, et cetera, et cetera. All the things that you and I know makes a community healthy and whole. They don't have those
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
so when, our best and our brightest make a little bit of money, they run out of there. So how can I wave that magic wand over those very same communities and optimize that as a destination where people say, I'm going to stay here so that Andrew and Pedro, when they grow up, they see a pharmacist, they see a doctor, they see a lawyer, they see a podcast hoster. They see those things because right now, those kids see LeBron James and they see 50 Cent. And that's what they're at, and every other derelict of our society. And that's what they're aspirational to be. And you and I both know that, not every kid's going to be a 6'7", Adonis,
No,
and not every kid has the capacity to be a rapper. And so, but they have greater capacity to be you and I,
that's right.
but
That's
if
right.
they don't see that around them, then all of this is for naught. And so
Yeah.
my magic wand wish would be to develop some level of greater capacity to be able to make those communities destinations where people want to live, um, raise a family, and start a business.
I think it's a very admirable mission. You're doing great work, Dr. Cohen, and I
I
appreciate your time
appreciate it.
today. Thank you for joining us and telling us more about it.
I appreciate it. And thank you for inviting me. And if I could ever be of assistance, please let me know.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, where can folks go to learn more about LISC Jacksonville or perhaps to connect with you?
So they can connect with me on via email, iCohen, ICOHEN @LISC.org, or you can, on any other social media platforms, Irvin PeDro Cohen, on any of those. And if you want to learn about the organization, just Google LISC Jacksonville, and look us up right there. And, I'm pretty good about responding to messages and all that kind of jazz. You get not because you don't respond. And so I try to make that a calling card of mine, is to answer the phone or respond to emails. And so there you have it. I'm not difficult at all to track down.
All right, man. Well, thank you again, Dr. Cohen. We appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you next time.
All right. Thank you for having me.